Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Adeptus On-Air. I'm your host, Mike Hoffman, and today I am joined by a director in our business management division, Miss Ashley Greene. Ashley, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. It's so good to have you on. Don't see you too often in person, but it's good to get this time to kind of catch up and talk about things. So how are things going down in South Carolina?
Great. Weather's warming up. Sun is out. Boats are out. Beaches, all the things.
The last thing you want to do is be sitting inside talking to me. So I do appreciate you taking some time to chat with me. So I think it's important to kind of talk about, business management is one of our three, main divisions in our firm. And business management is probably the one that's, growing the most lately just because of how the industry is evolving. But I don't think a lot of people really know what business management is. So just let's start off with the basics. Could you just describe in general, not what you do specifically, but what the term business management means?
Gosh, so if I were to describe business management, I would say that we sort of act as a financial concierge for our clients. And that entails sort of handling everything in their financial realm, from paying bills to monitoring their contracts, collecting income, making sure that, they have the correct tax structures, tax planning, compliance, work closely with financial advisors. We sort of act as that first step to make sure that people's lives are running smoothly and according to what their long-term plans are financially. And it's especially important for people who are extremely busy, right? Working actors and actresses, they don't have the time, the bandwidth to be handling all of those things. And that's sort of where we come in and we make sure that other aspect of their lives is running smoothly so that we're ensuring that they have future success.
Now, a lot of people, and obviously, as you alluded to, most people who you work with in business management are somewhat connected to the entertainment field or perhaps the sports field. Mm-hmm. How does your role play in when you're dealing with all the other people they have in their lives, whether it be family members, whether it be agents, whether it be talent managers, and so forth like that? What is your relationship with those people as well?
Well, we work very closely with them. We sort of become their team and sort of another family member. So all of my clients, I'm very close with their managers, their agents, their attorneys, anybody else that is very actively involved in their life, because we're all there, again, to work together as part of a team to make sure that everything is going right, is going smoothly, especially when there's so many moving pieces in somebody's lives. We all have to work cohesively. It's a very symbiotic relationship between, what we do and the other people on the team.
And I imagine some of the clients are more involved in their day-to-day than others, as it's the case with a client that we have. Some really want to be hands-on with their finances, and some kind of just want to be kind of informed. So how do you balance that difference with all of your different clients?
Well, it's really important to understand your clients' personalities and the type of communication that they want. And like you said, I really do have clients that expect to hear from me often, even if I don't have any updates or nothing, big is going on. And I have other clients who I think when I call them, they think their parent is calling or, that they're in trouble, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's another balancing act. So really the way I handle it is I sort of continue to have conversations with the client. How would you like to be communicated with? How often? What are the types of things that are important to you? And that's really a big range. Some people really just want to know, hey, my check came in, or, payments are on track and all of those things. Other people, like you said, want to know every aspect of their finances. They want to sit down and sort of have informational meetings often, sort of where I explain to them, the foundation of everything that we're doing from top to bottom. Yeah. So I really just assess what the client prefers.
Yeah. And it's interesting because what business managers do, as opposed to just say an accountant for a client, is you're really, you're effectuating payments. You're just getting their approval, but you're in their bank accounts, and
Right.
you really have access to, a lot of things that are very near and dear to them.
Right.
How does that trust get built?
I think normally there's a level of inherent trust because most of the clients that I have come in from referrals, right? So it's somebody that a client is close with that says, look, I've worked with Ashley. I trust her. And, we start with that level, a base level of trust. And then, of course, like any relationship, that's built over time.
Yeah.
Because you're right, we are on the front lines of things, right? We see everything that's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly. But it's also good too, because, when you think about it, we sort of get ahead of problems, right? We get to be proactive instead of reactive when we're seeing the entire picture of, what somebody has going on in their lives. So, even though it takes a lot of trust, which of course is a big deal, at the end of the day, it's in the best interest of the client to have somebody who sees the full picture of things.
Because I think when you're dealing with celebrities and a lot of your clients, you could probably put in that category. I'm sure they have a lot of trust issues because so many people want to get close to celebrities, and
Right.
a lot of their intentions are probably not pure and genuine. They're looking out for themselves and not necessarily for the client. So I imagine you, with that client, to get over that barrier of trust can be a little more challenging than just say me trying to establish trust with, a CFO of a manufacturing company, where my intentions are obviously to help him. But other people, I'm sure a lot of your clients have probably told you over times that they've gotten into business with someone, not necessarily a business manager, whether it was some kind of agent or something who had ulterior motives.
Right. I have experienced that, right, where clients have come on and they've had a bad experience, and we're starting sort of on shaky ground, or they have a guard up. And the way I sort of handle that is continuing to be transparent, to be very vocal about what my value system is, and really talk about what's important to me in terms of how I run my client base. And it's really like with the ideal that, if you do well, then, we're all doing well, right? It's of no interest to me in the long term to put you in a bad situation, right?
Now, without specifically mentioning anyone, unless you choose to, talk to me about your clientele, like, in terms of general age, specific industries that they're in entertainment and so forth.
So my clients really range all ranges, but primarily Gen Zs and millennials, actors and actresses. So that's really sort of what my wheelhouse is, and what works for me too, because I've really worked hard to understand, the millennials and the Gen Z generation, what's important to them, sort of, how they like to be communicated with. And it's not by phone. So, that's the other thing that, when you're working with somebody of a different generation, they're used to picking up the phone. A phone call can seem like an assault sometimes,
right.
Depending on the type of person. So yeah, that's my primary clientele. And really understanding too, another way is that they've diversified the way that they work and make income too. So that's a difference in the generations. That gives you like a whole nother aspect to understand, from endorsements to social media and that stuff. So it's always something new with them. And it's great too, right? Because, when we saw through the strike and people that were really just acting, they had no income, right? But, the younger generations who have sort of been scrappy is sort of what I would call it. It's like they have a bunch of different income streams, right? So, if that's the case, they were able to weather the storm. So it's been interesting to see that shift, and then also be on the front lines and really understand, what's going on in the industry by working with like the people that are defining it now.
Now, talking a little bit about the industry specifically, do you find now with the advent of streaming services and all these other platforms right now that these people are afforded more opportunities? Because, again, I'm not your Gen Z.
Right.
I'm a lot older. When I grew up, it was channel, it was ABC, CBS, NBC, or you went to the movies. And then slowly HBO came out and things like that. But nowadays, you have how many different streaming services, you have how many different, networks, how many private things it seems like every day you hear about a new one, whether it was Peacock or Paramount or, obviously you had the main ones, how has that changed their approach?
So what I've seen mostly, and, from the time that I started in this business until now, I mean, it was really like the onset of Netflix. So there was a point in time, I'll give you an example, somebody were to book a network show, you're guaranteed, a set amount of episodes. And generally a network doesn't put a show on TV if they don't anticipate it's going to get a second season or go in perpetuity, right? So Netflix and, some of these streaming advices, right? These, actors will get a job and it's a guaranteed 10 episodes, right? And you don't know if there's going to be a second season. They're maybe not entirely invested in there being a second or third season, right? So that's sort of the shift I've seen is there's like this, it's a sort of a smaller window that you have or an income stream that's really shrunk, right? And that's not guaranteed, or there isn't a whole lot of security, right? So that's really, that's sort of put people or actors in a disadvantaged position, right? Because, you're locked into doing something, you can't audition for something else. You have no idea if, you're going to be ready to take something else, right? And again, that's where we go back to, people sort of diversifying, right? In order to counteract that is becoming the norm.
So how is social media, you mentioned social media, play into it? Because obviously, you see, which is a whole nother, you have some people now that just spend their entire living being influencers or content creators, but a lot of your clients don't do that solely. It's something that is supplementing their income. So kind of talk about how are they going about getting these, opportunities? What are they looking for? Are they looking for, again, everyone's different. Are they looking for, where the biggest money is? Are they looking for what's going to represent them in the most positive way in terms of what brands they're going to attach onto?
So what I'm seeing more now are my clients having branding agents. So they have a specific agent separate from their acting career that presents them with these brand deals. I see it all across the board, whether, it's posts on social media or it's, actual campaigns. So that's a shift I've seen, is that a lot of my clients are then taking on that type of agent that's, enabling them to diversify their income. But of course, a lot of that is also dependent on how many followers you have and all of those things. So they still have to keep up, their PR, their social media. There's a lot more moving pieces than there once was.
Well, in the past, you only heard about someone, a celebrity if you were watching like Entertainment Tonight, or if you once a week you got your People magazine coming to the house and you're reading about it. Right now, I can pick up my phone right now, go to Instagram, and I can get the latest news on, where someone had lunch, 5 minutes ago, which, so I feel now these people have to constantly be on their A game, meaning, they can't, but they can't go out in sweatpants with their hair up if they have a certain image they need to uphold, and they have to, not be in the wrong place at the wrong time and things like that. Have you noticed that that's what's the word I'm looking for? Is that like a concerted effort that they're making sure they're on brand 24/7?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say that I have clients who I think are more aware of that, or more cognizant of it. That's really part of their lifestyle. I have other clients that it's not, it's really just a personality issue and personality trait, I should say, not an issue. It's really how they want to represent themselves, right? I also have other clients who sort of shy away from, being outside for that very reason. Yeah. So again, it's really, what's important to them, what's important to their brand, how they want to present themselves, so it really varies, but it's definitely people's approach to that, I think, makes a big difference in, their careers, how they live their lifestyle, how they're presented, those things.
Yeah, let's take a step back from business manager for a second. How did you get into the field? Because generally, you kind of get into accounting, with not necessarily, this is the way I want to go. So how did you end up kind of where you are now?
Well, I have kind of a very strange story because I had a degree in English literature and Spanish when I moved to Los Angeles. I quickly learned that those were not entirely marketable skills. So, um, right, nobody thinks about that when they're doing something that they're passionate about. But fortunately, I got a break and was given a job at a business management firm. I started all the way at the bottom, which was essentially data entry and making copies. Mm-hmm. For the bookkeepers and other people. And I really enjoyed it. And I loved the business, right? So I worked for a partner at the time and, I had big dreams, right? I was, 23, big dreams. Yeah. And he said to me, Ashley, your name will never be on the door unless you're a CPA. And I said, well, I'm going to go become a CPA. And I went to UCLA the next day and signed up for classes. And just worked full time, went to school at night and on the weekends and, got my degree, my CPA license. And that's really how this trajectory has gone. It's just working really hard, honestly. Yeah. And truthfully, I've had every job there can be at a business management firm, from like the data entry, making copies, answering the phones, to, bookkeeper, account manager, tax preparer, tax manager,
It's good. Also, you've seen every aspect of it.
Right.
Which I think has a lot of value as well. So, as you're managing, I think part of being an effective manager, not necessarily with your clients, but with the other Adeptus personnel, you kind of know what they're going through. You kind of know what they're working on. You might even be able to say, well, I struggled with this, so let's discuss it so it doesn't become a struggle for you.
Yeah, I mean, it really helps me to look at it from like a really holistic way, right? Mm-hmm. So I know, like I said, what goes on from like the top to the bottom right. to top. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes me more efficient mm-hmm. and able to, like you said, give advice to see where everybody can improve, right? Because I do have the experience of doing the job and, seeing where things bottleneck or where things are inefficient or, where communication can be better or where things can be streamlined. And that works really well, especially when it comes to servicing the client. I think it becomes noticeable, that we're not caught up anywhere.
Right. And I think one of the biggest compliments that, we can give you is obviously you came aboard here, 18 months, 2 years ago, whatever it is at this point. And you came in with really, hey, I want to just work on your stuff, whatever happens. And I remember I'm driving to work one day and you give me a call in the morning and say, hey, things are about to change. I have a lot of clients that, miss me mm-hmm. and, want to follow me over. And, we quickly had to, evolve your role to not mm-hmm. necessarily working on other, business management accounts here, but boom, all of your business management people, followed you over. And I think that's the kind of the biggest compliment that you can get from someone is you moved and they wanted to go through the move also, because let's face it, moving does come with some inconveniences for a client as well. So for them to be voluntarily willing to take on those inconveniences just to continue to work with you. Right. It has to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it was humbling, really. I hadn't, I guess, really realized the impact that I was having on people, because when you don't, even though you're communicating with them every day, if they're not your clients, if you don't own the firm, there's an understanding that, sort of that they're somebody else's, right? Sure, it's, sure. You're there to service and do the best you can at your job. So that was a great experience. It made me feel like I was really making an impact, and also inspired me to sort of continue on my path, right? In a way that was, gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. It was really sort of like a nexus point in my life where I realized, all right, this is for me.
So when you think about the industry, you didn't come from LA, but you worked in LA previously. I know you're born and raised on the East Coast, but you think about that field and you think about New York City, you think about LA, but you're in Charleston, and Charleston is is becoming a very relevant spot in the entertainment industry. It seems like a lot of productions are actually taking place in your city.
Yeah, they are. Outer Banks films here. There's a few other shows, movies that have filmed here. There's a very popular reality show, Southern Charm, that films here. And It's also become sort of a mecca for, people that are, trying to, after they've worked on these shows or they have other people or they've had exposure to Charleston, are starting to settle here and spend time here. And I've really seen a big influx of people from Los Angeles, New York, who are affiliated with the entertainment industry coming here. It's still, even though, people would think that, you're removed from all of those things, there is a very strong cord that attaches Charleston to, to Los Angeles and to the bigger cities. So that's been really interesting experience too. And, I go back to LA, quite often to meet and greet and, do the things that are important to have face to face. But, I always tell my clients too, especially after the pandemic and, people are much less sensitive to, working remotely. And then I think people also see the benefits of, your mental welfare. And, living a slower paced lifestyle, I think gives me enough respite to really be even better at my job. I have the mental capacity, I have the bandwidth, I have the hours, I have the patience, to handle the things that I need to handle.
And as you said before, especially with your generation right now, their mode of communication is where they don't necessarily require, back in the day when the, when the accounting client would come into the office once a week to drop off the photocopies of the invoices from last week. Nowadays with technology and just with, people being the way they are right now, it really is not a relevant piece of the conversation where you're located and where you're providing this value to your clients.
Right. And when I tell people that, it's really just glossed right over. It's like, oh, wonderful, beautiful city. Now let's, talk about things. And truthfully, like you said, my younger clients and, clients my age, they're so mobile themselves. There's just this huge movement where everybody is traveling, they're having new experiences. Most of my clients aren't just sitting in LA if they're not, filming or doing what they need to do. They're, all over the place.
And now filming, like we said, is all over the place. So they might be based out of LA, but they could be filming for 2 months in Vancouver. Vancouver obviously being a very popular spot, or Toronto, or back on the East Coast, or down by you. So just because you're based in LA because they're based in LA, they might be based there, but only physically there 2-3 months a year. Right.
Absolutely. And, also we communicate so much through our cell phones too. So there's like that element of constant contact. There's text messaging. There's the things I can give quick answers if something is important, or I can, acknowledge that, I see that there's a question, but it'll be handled at this time. So, there's less of that need to be, sitting at your desk, right? Like picking up the phone, sending your emails. It's interesting.
We all try and maintain a balance of like quality life, work-life balance kind of thing. I do imagine with your field, similar to ours, that, not that you're on call 24/7, but you've gotten those texts, I'm sure, late at night, someone needs something done, right away and so forth like that. I imagine when you do something like that, your clients really, not that they never appreciated your value, but really appreciate that, you're kind of available to them at all times.
Right. And I try to be within reason. That's one thing that I've always noticed that's challenging about, this business is really, there's an element of, somebody in my position, as human as we are, and, we build relationships with them. There's a level of us, sort of being this rock in their lives. And you have to, I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but, you have to help them. You have to set boundaries, but also be somebody that can solve their problems anytime. So you have to sort of, it's a very tricky balance to do all of those things and then sort of check your, humanity at the door, if that's the right way to say it. So that's been, and that's a conversation I have with my clients too, and an ongoing one, right? Because it's important that, we can be there for them, but then also not lose sight of, who we are as individuals.
I got a text last night at like 9:30 And it wasn't even important. It was, hey, do you think we could talk the next couple of days, to go over something? So I didn't answer because, there was no need to answer last night. And I just wrote back saying, yeah, glad to set something up. I said, unless it's an emergency, 9:30 on a Wednesday night, you don't need to be texting me.
Right. I think what I've noticed too is, especially with texting, and I think we all do this in our personal lives too, even in our professional, I'll send emails, whenever, but really it's just, I had a thought and I need to discharge it.
Agreed.
And that's what it is. And that's also a tricky balance too, right? To really assess whether it's an emergency, whether this is somebody just discharging a thought.
Well, that's the thing. Emergencies, I get it 24/7. If a client needs something, they need something. And, we've kind of signed on that we're going to be there to help them. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there's also that consideration. You hope, I'll give you an example, tax season, I know you're an early person. I'm a real early person. I'm in the office, 5 a.m. doing work. If I have a question for a client, I'm not calling them at home at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'm not doing it because, that can wait till 8 o'clock. Right. Or 9 o'clock, whatever, maybe. And I usually err really on the side of caution. I won't call someone, if I know they're at home, maybe a retired person or whatever, I won't call them 9:30.
Right.
But then again, like I said, you get a text at 11:30 night of the most random thing, and they don't know if my phone's on, if my phone's off. My phone stays on because of family if they need to reach me. And there's nothing more frustrating than being woken up for no reason that you need to be woken up for.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, it's a constant balancing act, and you have to work diligently to set boundaries, but within reason. And also just get to know your clients, right? I know with clients, if they're texting me in the middle of the night, it's just like, that's their peak hours, right? Or
I get it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get it. Must have seen that that's the only time they can reach you. Totally get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's the one who lives 10 miles away that does not need to be texting you at 11:30 at night. Those are the ones like, really? Come on. Come on. So is this your first podcast you've done?
This is the first podcast I have done.
Yeah, how do you like it?
I like it all right. I mean, I haven't watched it. I don't know that I'll watch it back, actually.
I never watch them back.
I think I'll just trust that it went all right.
All right, good, because I guess this will be the announcement portion. Ashley will be joining the ranks of our hosts for the upcoming Adeptus On-Air podcast. So congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm very excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're looking forward to having you. We're trying to always, revamp, improve, energize it. And, what we've seen past few months is getting definitely a lot more, noticed out there on the social media platforms, which is wonderful. Ashley's going to definitely do some podcasts, one-on-one, like we're doing right now. I think Ashley and I have agreed we're going to tag team some as well, trying just to give it a different dynamic. Yeah. And the two of us, we're going to gang up on some of our guests and probably, fight with each other a little bit too, which is great. I'm excited about it because, I know I may look 25 or 30, but Ashley and I do come from two. What are you saying? I don't?
Oh, no, you look great.
Thank you. Yeah. Hair looking good today and everything and so forth.
Great. You look great.
Thank you. Yes, but considering you're lying, I think us coming from two different generations that have two different experiences in life, I think we can add two perspectives, on a call. And I think that we can, definitely, really provide, I think, some good dialogue and some good conversations with some of our upcoming guests. So I'm definitely very excited to have you join the team with that.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, I haven't done it. Like I said, haven't done anything like this before. So I'm super excited for the experience. And
my first podcast guest here is a client of mine who has his own podcast. So I actually called him the night before he was coming on, and we even talked about it in the first podcast. And basically he said for it to come across as genuine and sincere, you totally have to be yourself.
Right.
If you're sarcastic, I can be at times, be sarcastic. Don't try and be what you're not, because it shows whether you're watching it on YouTube or whether someone's like just streaming it on Spotify or another platform. They can hear it that it's not you, even if they don't know you. Right. And I think if you do that, you can't go wrong. We get guests from all over the place. Some of them are clients, which are great. Mm-hmm. some of them are just people who have reached out to us wanting to be on it. And there's some that we've reached out to people, to be on it. And some of the conversations flow great. I could talk to them for hours and we're just having a good time. And I love when the conversations just totally go to a totally different place and we just have fun and laugh about what we're laughing about.
Right.
The other ones where sometimes it's a struggle because they're not giving as much as I'm trying to get from them, or the topic is just something that I don't necessarily vibe with so well. Those are challenging. And that's why I think having two people with that, I think could really help. And without saying too much, I did one very recently that I would have loved to have had a co-host because I was struggling with conversation. I would have loved to have someone else to kind of banter about.
Play off of. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a good time. I think it really is.
So I wanted to definitely address that. So without obviously revealing anything specific, can you think about any moments over the past 10 years in the business management field that kind of stick out as a really proud moment or a really funny anecdote that kind of came out of dealing with one of your clients, or a, wow moment? Because let's face it, you have clients that are very relevant in the modern day entertainment world. So I know you've been in public with them. I'm sure you've seen them on TV doing things. Has there been a moment you're like, this is really like, wow?
I think it's always been interesting for me to see the trajectory of people's careers, right? I get very excited when, I've had private conversations with them where they've expressed what their goals are, or, I've talked to their managers and their agents and they explain to me, what direction they want to go in, or, it's always been a wow factor to me when I see people, doing the things that they set out to do, and seeing the whole process of them working hard and being dedicated, and all the work that it goes into doing that, and knowing that I was a piece of that puzzle, right? Yep. That's what makes me feel really gratified, right? Is being a part of, somebody reaching their goals, right? And it's really sort of what we do is we help them get there, in our way as part of their team. And, having somebody say, wow, thank you for playing your role in me reaching, my goals and doing well. That's been a very cool experience for me.
Do you go out of your way to either avoid or to watch one of your clients on TV?
Gosh, if I'm being honest, and I'm honest with my clients too, I'm not really much of a TV watcher. Yeah. So I will, watch their shows occasionally, but I don't seek them out necessarily, to watch.
One of the funniest stories I have with you, and I won't mention your client's name, is you called me one evening, I think it was probably like 7:00 or whatever. I'm home to tell me that you just got the phone with someone and they're signing on with you. As you're talking to me about that, I'm watching a TV show and they are on the screen in front of me as we're talking about them coming on. And that was a very weird moment. I think I actually took a screenshot as I was talking to you of the TV and texted it to you. Because, you told me the show they were on. I wasn't sure exactly who it was, but then when you told me the character, I'm like, wait a minute, is this who you're talking about right now? And that was just a bizarre moment for me that ironically at that time we were on the phone maybe 3 minutes. And in that 3 minutes of all the shows I could have been watching and all the people you could have called me about,
right,
those two things aligned.
Yeah, it is trippy for sure. Yeah, that's one of those weird synchronicities in life that sort of stop you in your tracks. I think for me is that, there's this sort of when you see a client on screen or them as a human, I think it's really important with what we do to sort of, keep the fan element out of it.
Agreed.
So that's sort of one of the reasons, I like to sort of separate those two things, right? I don't ever, I think that you get into a dangerous position sometimes when you really idolize them as, the person on TV or the person in the movies or those things that can put you in a situation where you may say yes to things or do things, that maybe is not in their best interest, but in the interest of being a yes person because you have this fandom.
You value that connection so much with them and you want to hold on to that relationship because
right.
And I think people have gotten in trouble for that, not here, fortunately, but you hear about these things where, you know, an agent or a financial, you hear more so on the finance side than the business management side, but you do hear about it where an advisor really, you know, lost someone's money. And you wonder, was it because they were, I don't think it's always that they were bad stealing the money. I think they didn't want to give an honest opinion because this celebrity wanted to do something.
Yes.
Or they don't want to say no.
Or they're very attached to being a part of, you know, fame. Right. And that's like something that you really have to separate yourself from, you know, as a business manager, is be that neutral party, because you're not here necessarily to idolize them. Right. And to be a yes person. You have to have the fortitude to say no. You know, I say to my clients too, I mean, with what I do, I really come from a place of no most times.
Right.
And I come from a place of yes. And I have to sort of detach myself and give them an honest opinion without, you know, wanting so much to be in their good favor.
And you would think that a lot of them would appreciate that, because most places they go, they don't get a no.
Right.
Oh, I don't have a reservation. Can I get a table? It's usually not a no. It's, oh, okay. You know, it's a lot of that. So I think you being honest with the no can be really good, because they appreciate, okay, Ashley's really got my best interest. She doesn't care who I am. She wants to do what's right by me. But at first it might be like, wait a minute, someone's saying no to me? What the hell?
Yeah, so that goes both ways.
Yeah.
That's so I've definitely had some friction with people who have not liked my approach, or, you know, don't want to hear no, right? Because it's not something that they often hear. Yeah. So I've had friction in some situations with clients, and, you know, it goes with any type of relationship, right? You have to have a symbiotic relationship. You and your client have to sort of be partners in this, really. Like, you're equal participants in reaching the goals that you need to reach. And if that becomes an issue, you know, where me saying no because I don't think it's in their best interest based on, you know, my experience, if that's an issue for them, then generally we have to part ways, because, you know, there has to be a level of trust in what I bring to the table. And and again, we can't advise a client. If I advise a client something and they continue to do the opposite, then, you know, I have to sit back and look, am I doing my job? Am I having the appropriate impact on the person? Right. You know, in that situation, you have to assess whether this is a relationship that needs to continue.
Yeah.
So
have you ever, I'm doing it more as I'm getting older, have you ever fired a client because of, you know what, this just isn't working for me and I don't think it's working for you?
Yes, I have. And it's generally for the reason that we just discussed, where, you know, they would like to accomplish something and I say, well, sure, we can get there, but if we're weighing our options, we can get here, but all of these other things are going to fall apart, right? And so based on my assessment, it's better if we, you know, wait to get to that point you want to at a later time. So I have, you know, if I don't feel like I can make a positive impact, you know, on somebody's life, then I really don't have a business being in it. Sure. You know, so I've absolutely had that conversation with
that
people.
Might be the quote of the day right there.
What's that?
That was a good quote. If I don't feel like I could have a positive impact on someone's life, I have no business being in that life.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, you know, how it's important to me, you know, to sort of run, you know, my client base like that.
Yeah. I like that one. Michelle, that's a reel right there. That quote right there has to be a reel on Instagram. So you don't even know what reels are because you're not a big social media person.
I'm not a big social media person.
Oh, we're going to change that. That's our goal.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I really enjoy my anonymity, my sanity, all of those things. But we'll see.
It'll be good. Now with the podcast, you'll be appearing on social media. You just won't know about it. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, I had this conversation with people the other day because I always say I don't have social media. I'm not on Instagram, any of those things. But, what I'm finding out is that my friends put me on social media quite a lot. So I guess I do have a presence that I'm completely unaware of.
There you go. That's good. If you don't want to be on it, then you don't need to know about it. It's all good.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
That's right. Well, listen, super excited to have you part of the podcast family. We're obviously so thrilled with you being part of the Adeptus family for the past couple of years. And we're excited to have you here for a long, 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 long time going forward. Thanks for joining me. And the next time we're together on here, it's going to be with a guest.
Yeah, very exciting. Very exciting.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm sorry?
I want to come up with like a sign off,
Well, it's funny. We're going to work on that. We're going to come up with something good. I always find myself without any thought starting it the same way. I don't know why. My sign-offs are definitely weak. So
yeah, we should definitely come up with a sign-up, just like the old radio hosts.
That's right. We need to have something good. I know maybe we'll get some good new theme music and stuff. We'll really crank this thing up.
Yeah, something good, something catchy.
Little character sketches of us, kind of like fighting, like two like characters like yelling at each other.
I like it.
There you go, Michelle. Get on it. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.